Welcome everybody today. This is the Montana Business Vlog. I'm Joel Silverman, your host from Silverman Law Office. Thank you for joining us here at the Montana Business Vlog, where we're connecting business people across Montana. Today we've got with us Andrew Hurlburt from the Bozeman Real Estate Group. Andrew, thank you for joining us today and welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, Andrew, why don't you tell us how you got to Bozeman, because we know you're not originally from Bozeman, so you've got a great journey that we're looking forward to hear today.
Yeah, it's true. I'm an import like so much of Bozeman. We always joke that it's one of the first questions you ask somebody when you meet them in Bozeman is, where are you from? But very often it's the case that we're not from Bozeman. I'm from Colorado originally. I got here by way of California. I was stationed out there as a hotshot in the Forest Service, and had to come out that summer to Montana for a 5-week tour up in Glacier, and knew right then that I was going to live in Montana. So at the end of the next fire season, I packed everything up in my truck, which was everything I owned, and pulled into Bozeman, Montana. And I've been here ever since.
So what made you decide Bozeman versus Missoula or Whitefish, Kalispell area?
Yeah, I had no idea. I was literally just heading to Montana. I was driving through Las Vegas, and I called a friend that from high school that I knew had gone to school in Montana. I said that I'm moving to Montana. Where should I go? And he said, "Oh, go to Bozeman. You'll love it. It's got great fishing, great hunting, great skiing." And so I pulled Bozeman up on a map, because of course it was before we used our cell phones to navigate everywhere, and drove into Bozeman, slept in my truck that first night, and found a room the next day. So
nice.
Yeah.
So as we were talking earlier, as a young man, leadership was very important to you. Why don't you tell us about leadership? What are some of your core values in leadership, and what are some of the things that helped you develop that leadership instinct as a young man?
Yeah, for sure. I think so much of my focus on leadership was developed through high school. I went to a military high school in Wisconsin, and you just live and breathe leadership through the course of that military academy. And you learn a lot about, you get formally trained in leadership, as well as just thrown into a very practical role along the way. And I loved it. I thrived on it, and I enjoyed it. So it became a big part of who I am now. And I think that some of my core principles, of course, were developed out of that time. Certainly leading by example, and leading from the front has always been important. They talk about, directing, delegating, and participating, and participating being the most desirable leadership style. And so I've always tried to participate in what we do and what we are.
Walk me through that. Direct, delegate, participate.
DDP, directing, delegating, and participating. And participating is the most desirable. Delegating being the least. So
give us some more on that, because there's clearly more to this when we're talking about DDP, yeah. Right? That you were clearly educated on this a lot, but help us understand, what does this mean?
Yeah, I think that everybody has their leadership role, their leadership style, and they fall into that because it's very often what they're most comfortable with. I think that we see portrayals of leadership very often as delegating. I think that's what we're most accustomed to seeing. Somebody out there telling people what to do, giving them tasks, just turning over little bits and pieces to people. And in bigger structures, that has to happen. At some point, you've got to do some delegation. But to delegate away all of the tasks is to essentially forfeit your role as a leader. If you're able to participate, you find that you get excellent followership. And out of that, you can figure out who the next round of leaders are going to be. But yeah, by participating, by being involved, I think that not only do you stay close to the task at hand, you have a better understanding of what that mission is, and you're able to more correctly form a plan to get that goal accomplished.
Give us an example. Do you have a real-world example where you learned something from this? Like that you stumbled into a wall with it and went, "Oh, if I just done."
Yeah. I think that everybody has some mishaps. I'm trying to think of some good standouts. Certainly when I was first trying to bring an assistant in, and I was starting to farm out some of my work, I was finding that we were losing some transactions and losing deals because I wasn't staying involved enough. And what I found is if I had a little bit greater role in the transaction, if I were able to show that person firsthand how to handle that transaction, they were more successful. They were able to convert better if I was able to give them a little bit of firsthand instead of just turning it over to them and saying, take this person out and show them houses. If I were able to actually show them firsthand what that looked like and how that should play out, they were able to then execute on the thing a little bit better.
So I'm sorry to interrupt,
yeah,
but because this is just, boy, you're firing stuff off in my head here. I love this because as employees will always say, oh, well, you're micromanaging me, mm-hmm. right? What is the difference then between following through and participating in it and micromanaging?
Yeah, I think micromanaging is where you ultimately decide that there's a specific way that things need to be done, instead of, again, just formulating a plan to get to a common goal. So when we have meetings with our marketing department, we figure out what that goal is and formulate a plan. I then don't tell them when to write a blog post. I don't tell them what the content of that blog post should be. I don't give them the specifics of how to get there. I simply help them formulate that plan and then let them execute the plan. I think if I get in and start doing their job, now you're micromanaging. And it's tricky because in some instances, participating starts looking like micromanagement. I agree. I think that if you participate at too great of a level, and you're not letting the people that hopefully you surround with yourself with that are better at those tasks, I think you end up by shooting yourself in the foot and trying to do their job for them, and you end up by, again, not being able to get the most out of that personnel. So
fantastic. So you're in college in Colorado. You went to University of Colorado, right?
Yep.
You're a buff.
Yeah. I started
a bobcat.
a little bit of time there. So
fantastic. So with that, you decided to start up a landscape company while you're in college.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, I was looking for something to do in the summers, and had a background in landscape. Had some friends with some connections to some areas around Boulder, and had a huge source of labor. I was in a fraternity with a bunch of guys that were looking for work, so I decided to start a landscape company with another fraternity brother, and we put a few trucks together and went around and did landscape with this crew, and it went well. We kind of cornered the market of a little part, just like of a neighborhood just west of Boulder, and specialized in there, and we did some new landscapes and landscape cleanup and a little bit of maintenance and mowing. I mean, just kind of did everything, and it was good. It was my first company that I owned, I guess.
So what came first in this case, the chicken or the egg? Did you know the need was there, or did you say, I've got a skill, I've got a labor resource, let me go find the need?
Yeah, it was the latter. Like I said, I had a partner on that had some connections to an area where I think he knew where the need was, and I knew that I had the resource. So I think in that way, we each brought a little bit to the table that made a lot of sense for putting the whole thing together and going out and getting us some work for the summers.
Fantastic. I read about business voraciously, mm-hmm. because it's what drives me in my world. And so I see it so many times where people say, I've got the great idea, I've got all the resources behind me, and yet they still fail, and it's because they never realize that the need has to exist first for the service or the product, right? If you can find that niche that is needed, you can go get everything else, but the niche has to be there, the want for that. Yeah. So that's fantastic. I love that. Okay, so you're back in college, you get through college in your time at University of Colorado. Then what? Did you decide to jump into the hotshot crew then with Forest Service?
Not quite right away. It was not long after that, though. I'd had an accident and had some medical bills that came from that, and I'd dropped out of school and had started welding. I had a friend that was a welder at a small fabrication shop, and I started working with him building custom fire apparatus. And through the course of that, met a great hotshot superintendent, and he essentially hired me on the spot. So I was a volunteer firefighter at the time, and so I had some of my credentials that I needed. But that very next spring, I was out in California and started doing some firefighting. So yeah, it was neat.
Excellent. So you go from summertime entrepreneur to welder with some entrepreneur ideas in there, right? A new product. Now you're a hot shot, and then what happens? What drives you back around?
Yeah, I mean, as awesome as hot shotting was, you are digging ditches all summer, and it's it's hard work, long hours, and it's sure enjoyable. But I did realize at that point that I wanted to get back into business. When I came to Montana, I got back into MSU and was planning to finish my business degree, but stumbled into real estate at that point. So.
Stumbled into it. Did somebody help trip you into it, or did you just fall in?
More or less. I had that good Forest Service money and decided to invest in Bozeman. So when I got out here, about a year later, I bought a little triplex over on 9th and Olive, and that was my first real estate investment. And I thought that I could really lower my transaction costs if I got this real estate license, and so I could continue investing in real estate. But before long, I realized that school was not necessarily my gig, and I had this real estate license and decided to put that to use when I met one of my old partners, Tony Westcott, and he became a real role model and mentor, and became somebody that I would follow through hell and high water, and really got me committed to real estate. So
that's unbelievable. So you find Tony. Tony's what? He's advising you. He's helping mentor you.
Yeah.
And he tells you, look, stop wasting your time. Get into real estate.
Yeah. At some point, so I met him when I decided I was going to hang my shingle somewhere, and so met him through real estate. And he was my supervising broker. And at first he's got such a great big personality and everything. He was very unapproachable, but he had just shown me some unwavering support, which was a neat thing that I'd never seen before, and I'd never really had in my life. And he just backed me through so many different things and so much growth through my 20s, and it started becoming more of a mentorship. And I started learning more from him, and quickly developed a desire to want to become his partner so I could continue that relationship and continue to learn from him. So.
Excellent. So then the next step in life is what at that point? So you're realtor, you end up getting in partnership with him?
Yeah, so it was about 7 or 8 years in, I was able to acquire some shares of that company, and became officially Tony's partner. We had a few other partners in that organization, and it was awesome. I learned so much from running that company with Tony. So he was getting towards the end of his career, and it was, we were just perfect timing wise. So he was able to start showing me the ropes so I could start learning some brokerage management.
And so now you become part of the company, you buy in, and things seem like they're going great?
Yeah, things started off pretty well, and I think that Tony and I had a vision of what a company could look like and the type of environment that could be. I had some partnership that had a little bit of a varying vision of what they wanted from their company and what they were looking for in their company, and eventually those two different opinions essentially was found that they were just going to be unreconcilable, We weren't going to find a middle ground. And I found in speaking with some of our agents that they also shared my vision and what a company could look like and could be. And that led to me spinning off and starting Bozeman Real Estate Group, where we are now.
What is it in you that, and let me pre-frame this question, because I think one of the hardest parts we all have in business, as well as running a business, right? Whether to start a new business, whether to exit a business, dealing with employees, dealing with ourselves, is when is it time to pull the ripcord and just get out?
Yeah.
Right? That is such a difficult question for all of us to deal with. What was it for you personally that you just said, you know what, I've got to go do something different?
Yeah, it's hard. It's a tough decision, and for me, it was a painful decision. I saw my future in life with that company, and I thought that I would assume Tony's role and I would stay there like he did, well into my golden years. But at some point, if you find that your plan, your vision is diverging, or that there's insurmountable roadblocks to getting to where you want to be, I think you have to pull that trigger. And I've never run into somebody that's had to make that decision that said, I left too early, or I made it too early. So I think very often it is because it's very calculated. It takes time to come to that decision. But when you do, you realize, boy, we should have done this a little sooner, or could have done it a little bit sooner. But I think everybody's glad that when they finally get over that hurdle and make that decision and move forward down a path that they see more fitting. And I think that was very much the case for us.
Now, I personally take a different look on what I would call failures. Most people think of failures as a horrible thing. I think of failures as the most fantastic learning opportunity on the world,
Yeah.
right? And to me, a failure is also something that is not what you were shooting for. So clearly you weren't shooting to leave the company from the outset. That was not your goal.
Absolutely not.
Right? So what then was the great learning lesson for you exiting the company that might have saved you from that pain?
Yeah. Ultimately, for me, I think it was understanding the nature of the partnership before getting into the partnership. We didn't have good communication early in the game, and that was everybody's fault. And I think that had we had better communication early on, one, we might have figured out that we didn't have shared vision, and that's very difficult in a partnership. That's tough to overcome. And two, that communication could have maybe got us on track to gain a shared vision. But we lacked that, and we never had that. And I think that was probably the grand lesson, is to make sure that you've got a partnership that you communicate well with, and that where everybody's bringing something to the table, and you value what those qualities and traits are. Without that, I think you very often end up with failed partnerships or failed endeavors.
Fantastic. Wow, you've given us some good nuggets right there. That's great. Because that's exactly what we see so often in my world when we have people sit down with us and they want to start a partnership, a new business.
Yeah, you see it a lot.
Oh boy. And how many times we start in and we ask them, what are their whys? Why are they doing what they're doing? And somebody says, well, it's because I want X in the end. And the other person says, it's not about the end goal, it's about the journey, right? Or it's because we want to give back to the community. And this person's going, no, it's profits, baby, yeah. Right? And they end up in this fight. And so we've really learned to try and focus in on that for our clients, because it is so important.
Do you find you can tell at the onset which partnerships are going to be successful and which ones are going to have troubles and struggles?
It's a great question. I think we can if they're honest about it.
Yeah.
But the hardest part is at the beginning is having open and honest communication, because I think what happens is so often we get into a partnership and we don't truly understand what our why is.
Right.
Somebody else has a more domineering personality, so we're just going along with their why, and at some point we discover it. and we say, oh man, this isn't what drives me. I don't wake up every morning with that same passion and zeal to go after that day again. And you lose yourself. If you want to call it the midlife crisis in business, well, here's a great question for you.
Yeah.
Is every day you wake up, is it the best day ever, or do you also have down days?
I always joke we're looking for a win a day, and that's our big goal, because I think it'd be unrealistic to think that we're going to have the best day ever every single day. We know there's ups and downs. If we can take away one win a day, we're pretty happy about it. And sometimes we celebrate some pretty small wins, but as long as we get that win a day, it makes the day worth it.
Yeah, I get up and I might not have the energy, but having the energy is different than the drive to me, right? I get up and I might go, I'm just so frustrated with issues in my company or with issues in my personal life, and it's dragging me away from my company, and yet I can still turn around and go, but my why is, and that's what gets me back into the game, right, on that day.
When you started in business?
No. Is yours?
I don't know that I knew my why when I started.
Ah, okay.
So I think I found mine along the road.
Yeah.
And it's very much stayed the same and been a driving factor for us and for our company.
That's fantastic. So what was it for you at the start? And I'm guessing you probably have some minor tweaks to it as you've gone along, but you haven't had a major shift.
Yeah, I think my why when I started was because I needed a job, and so I had to find something. So I think I started with a need ultimately, and so that led me to getting the job, and then my why for wanting to become an owner, becoming a broker, was that I wanted to manage people. I liked that component. I enjoyed that part of the job, and so it really became more focused on the people, and that's when my why started to transition, not just to the people within the company, but then also to the community. And I realized how neat it was that for a guy that had never set foot in Bozeman to be able to come here and have so much opportunity. I realized that is only by the grace of a supportive community. So we were looking for opportunities to give back to that community. And Tony's always been a great philanthropist, and he got me started down that road, and understanding and seeing the value of philanthropy and community service and the joy of volunteering, which we've sure done a lot of, and just enjoy it every time we get a chance to.
How do you live it, embody it? Because what you're telling me is just gold.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fantastic that you focus so much on that. How do you do that in your company, in here, as well as out of here?
Yeah, it starts just by saying yes, right? I mean, there's opportunities all around us to help out, and all you got to do is take them. I started in Kiwanis, and that exposes you to a bunch of different stuff, be it Big Brothers Big Sisters or Thrive or all these other different great organizations that we have in Bozeman, Eagle Mount. And that exposure, again, you start getting people inviting you to take other opportunities to volunteer or give, and all you got to do is say yes. And I got good at saying yes to the point where it was getting bad, but you find that you're giving all your time up, but it just, there's so much intrinsic value that comes out of that level of giving, that it eventually becomes hard to say no. Now that I've got a family and some other responsibilities and stuff, you have to turn down some of those opportunities, but we still use that as a core foundation of our company, and me and my wife of our lives, is to make sure that we're continuing to give as much as we're able to. It's neat now because we've got 24 different agents, and we've got staff here that all have different things that they want to give to and that they want to participate in. And when people bring up ideas, we're able to collaborate on them and do them as a group now. And we find that we're so much more effective, and we can do so much more for the community and do, bigger, greater things all the time. And we're looking forward to figuring out what our next adventure in helping out is going to be.
Well, I want to get back to the partnership issue. We'll get back to that in a second, but you got me hooked on this giving to the community. So you had mentioned before we came onto air here, you'd mentioned a special project you just done. How did you get into that? Who was the creative one behind it? And where do you see this thing going?
Yeah, that was a neat one. It was one that one of our agents, Jason Basie, was involved in a very similar project that he worked with the Capes on. It was originally Miracle on 19th Street, and they were doing it at Old Chicago, but it was a community Thanksgiving dinner that they were putting on, and it was just free to the public for the community, and anybody could come and enjoy in the fellowship and get a free Thanksgiving meal and visit with people from the community. Incredible project. And we found that when Old Chicago was no longer doing it, that nobody had really filled that void. There's a couple other folks that were doing something to, various things, and our community is incredible because everybody wants to give in our community. We have several hundred nonprofits in a pretty small town. I mean, we just give without end in this community. But nobody had quite filled in that void that Old Chicago left, and so we decided that we were going to try it. Jason kind of spearheaded the thing. We got some great partners on the deal with Josh and Justine over at Midtown Tavern, and we put on a community dinner and fed 350 people our first shot this last year. We had 28 volunteers from our office show up and give up their Thanksgiving day to go put this thing on, and it was one of the neatest events because you just see how appreciative people are, both the people receiving and the people doing the giving. Mm-hmm. And it is, again, to see people getting that opportunity to give and see them bringing their families and involving their kids and letting them understand what that giving's about and see how much they appreciate it and then start to understand it is really neat. So we're going to absolutely continue that project, and we'll be doing more of that in the future.
That's a fantastic project. If somebody wanted to help out with that project, how would they help out?
Yeah, it's it's one of those things where we have so many volunteers in our office that we've been able to really take it off and handle it all. But certainly the best thing we could do is get the word out, spread the word, and have people show up, because that's what makes it all work and happen is having those people that are there and appreciate it. So it runs pretty smoothly though. So we've got it pretty well dialed in now.
God, it just sounds unbelievable.
It's a neat one.
Wow. 380. Do you have a goal? Are you shooting to break the 500 mark this next year?
I think we can get this thing to 600 people. Hopefully in a couple of years, I'd like to see it floating around 600 people.
Wow.
It'd be neat to serve a few more people.
Well, hey, do us a favor. Let us know about it, because we'd be more than happy to get it out on social media.
Absolutely.
Help out, manpower-wise, however we can. I love that. That's a great idea.
See, like I said, our community just gives tirelessly.
Yeah.
All you got to do is say yes.
Yeah, 100%. I love it. So let's shift back. Let's talk about this partnership. You're in it. You're at this point where you're starting to recognize the divergent visions, and what for you. I don't want the details of what broke the camel's back, but what for you was kind of like a realizing moment that you said, no, I need to do something different.
Yeah, it was when I started visiting with the agents and realizing that their needs weren't being met either. I realized that we were heading for some real struggle anyways if we weren't able to meet those needs, and our existing company structure was not going to meet the agent needs that they were bringing up. And that's when I realized that I probably had to put something into motion now or never. So it became more of a pressing issue when I realized that there was a real need from the agents.
Okay, so you decide to get out. You're looking back now. If you could think about Andrew as the young guy who before he signs the paperwork to come on as a partner, give us that snippet that you'd give Andrew as that advice back then before he signed on as a partner.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, I don't have any regrets about the whole thing because I learned so much, and it got us to this point, and it developed it. And had I not done that, I don't think that our current company would have ever happened. At the same time, I approach a partnership differently now than I would have back then. I was so eager to get into that managerial role and to get into partnership, and that I think I overlooked some of the fundamentals of understanding what the partnership was about. And I never took the time to really figure out if we had a shared vision. And we never communicated what we wanted to see the company in 2, 5, 10, 20 years. And I think that if I could talk to Andrew back then, I would make sure that we would have had a little bit more of an open channel of communication very early in the game, not only before getting the partnership together, but during the whole course of the thing. I think that was a big component that we really missed on, and I think it's probably what ultimately led to the failure of that partnership.
Vision is so key when it comes to a business. Where are you heading? Not only short term, you brought it up, right? You said 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 years, even 20 years. Do you share that vision constantly with your team?
Yeah, we talk about it pretty regular. We revisit our founding principles, basically what our mission statement is of being able to give more back to the agents and the community and the clients that support our business. And we make sure that we're on target to doing that. We make sure that we're holding ourselves to those standards. And as a one owner company, now I task my staff with holding me accountable. And I make sure that they stay on me, making sure that we're sharing those measures. And we have some fail safes set up to make sure that we keep the culture of the company aligned with what we originally wanted it to be. We make sure that all the agents have a say in who we bring on and what our personnel looks like. And it's kept things good. I mean, we've been strong. So
when you're interviewing somebody, right, a new agent or somebody you're going to bring up through the system and get them to become a realtor, how do you ensure that you're getting somebody that shares your same vision or that shares the company vision?
Yeah, it's hard because you get just this tiny little window into the type of person that you're working with. And we're fortunate in our business that very often we've had other dealings with the other agents in town. We visit with the other agents that might have a closer personal relationship with people that we talk to, and we make sure that they're a good fit culturally. What that looks like for us is really somebody that wants to participate. We have we have a lot of company events and things that we use to build that team and make sure that everybody's working together, and again to make sure that our visions are aligned, and we want people that are going to actually participate in that type of thing. So I think that's one of the biggest things that we look for is just, again, people that are willing to say yes and participate and be a part of the company. We don't want to just be a brokerage where somebody comes to hang their shingle and go work out of their house. We want people that are involved and a part of the company. So
how do you make sure during the interviewing process you get that?
Yeah, it's tricky. And I think that you ultimately have to ask point blank, what do you see your role within our organization? How do you plan to interact with the company? Not just trying to sell the company to them, but also trying to figure out if they want to participate in that culture. And really, I think you have to ask them point blank. And then a lot of it just comes down to gut, right? You got to just listen to what your gut's telling you, if that person makes sense and is going to be a fit.
Let's get back into the business side. You have this vision. You incorporate it into your company. How often do you revisit it? How often do you lay it out to your team members?
Yeah. So we have semi-monthly meetings that we get together with the staff, and very often it gets brought up in those. But at least quarterly, we really have a focused talk about, are we meeting our original goals? Are we doing what we originally said we were going to do? And we're able to kind of boil down. I think that everybody's able to take an objective look at what we're doing and making sure that we are still meeting those goals.
And your goals are more than financial.
Yeah. Financial goals are hopefully just a byproduct of doing everything else well. we really have focused on, again, making sure that we've developed a culture that the agents want to show up to the office. You talk about, is every day going to be the best day of your life? And I want the agents to wake up in the morning and be excited about the office that they get to go into that day. So it might not be the best day, but at least they're happy to be there. I don't want people that are dreading coming in. I don't want it to feel like work. I don't want them to have to go through have the Mondays on a regular basis. I want them to feel more like Fridays around here, and sometimes it does. But yeah, those goals really are to focus on that culture, to make sure that the agents are happy and thriving, and to make sure that our clients are happy with our service. Ultimately, those lead to some beneficial financial outcomes.
So you brought up a case on the Mondays, which drives me nuts, the thought of, that work somehow is only between a Monday and a Friday. But what is it that you do when you get up in the morning and you're having a tough day that you say, no, this is so worth it every day to wake up, to push this hard, to do that next thing?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it comes back to that culture. I think that the most obvious reason that I get excited about coming into work is to have a chance to see and interact with our staff and our agents. We've got just one of the most remarkable staffs put together that I could ever imagine, and they really bring a lot of value, not only to the company, but just to that desire to come in to work, and they make the place have a soul. They make it have a little bit of a heart, and that's I think that's what makes you want to show up and compels you to work and do your very best to make the company be healthy and grow and continue into the future.
So I'm constantly being bombarded with work-life balance questions.
Gosh, boy, if you've got that figured out, you let me know.
I think it's BS personally. Because what work-life balance is for you is different than me, is different than somebody else, right? But for you, what is it that is the balance that you're shooting for in life, and how do you make sure that you're following through on that?
Yeah, so it's funny, I joke about it because I for a very long time have not had any sort of work-life balance. Ultimately work was life, and it was great because I enjoyed what I was doing. I love what I do for work, and I love the people that I get to hang out with and spend time with and work with. But getting a family started changes all of that. Suddenly you instantly want to refocus your energy and your time. And it's been difficult because I literally had our baby boy the day that we opened the new company. So
wow.
So my wife likes to joke that we kind of each had our baby on the same day, but it has completely altered what my focus is, though, on where I want to allocate my time. And I am honestly just trying to figure out how to make that all happen. My wife has been so supportive through getting this business up and going, and is an integral part of the company at this point, and has given and given and given in that sense. And I am certain is ready for me to start giving back to the family, as am I. I mean, I just cannot wait to get more involved in that part of my life and be able to support her on the family endeavors and to show her some of the same support that she's been able to show me. But mostly it's just so stinking fun when the little guy's growing up and you just see him learning every day, and it gives you a completely new outlook on life. One of the agents and I were talking earlier about how if only we could all see the world through a kid's eyes. And, it's just such wonderment, and it's just really a neat thing to be able to see and experience. So I don't have any work-life balance advice because I'm trying to figure it out on my own right now, and maybe we can get back to that in another year or two and see if I've learned anything. But,
so you say your wife's integral in the business, right? How is she? How do you bring her into the business? Because she doesn't work here, right?
She does not. She's been great as a cultural component. So she interacts with all the agents on a regular basis. She helps us set up our functions, whether it's Christmas parties or barbecues. She holds me accountable on a lot of that stuff, making sure that we stay focused on the goals. She's my sounding board at home, and she has just become an incredible resource for not only me but also for the company, as somebody that we're able to talk to and communicate with. And then she's just so good for culture because she helps bring all that together, does stuff with involving spouses and really getting that whole family component involved in the company. So she's been great.
That's fantastic. I see it so often where I meet people in the business world and I ask them, oh, so, is your spouse involved in the business? Oh, no. I wouldn't have my spouse involved in the business. Yeah. I want to be able to go home and get away from the business. And I think, well, isn't the business what drives you? Because if it's what drives you, you don't get to just, like, the bell never rings and your brain just shuts off from it. Yeah. Right? And as well as you want to share so much of your life with your spouse, and your spouse wants to share with you. Yep. How do you get to do that?
That's a big part of your life.
Right? So. Yes. So I love that. That's fantastic. Bozeman is just blistering red hot right now. It's an economy in the real estate market. MSU is exploding at the seams here with the students and the faculty. It's just everything is firing on all cylinders. But I was also around in 2008 when Bozeman imploded economically, right? If you pay attention to the news right now, nobody's saying that there is economic hard times right in front of us, but maybe a little ways out. So what's kind of your take on the economy and the real estate market right now?
Yeah, it's interesting because we are in such a strong economy and such a thriving market. The rate that we're growing, we're not meeting the housing demands. There was an article in the newspaper this morning was talking about having 12,000 housing units needed in the immediate future. I think that's that's a pretty telltale sign that Bozeman is going to continue to thrive. People want to be here, and as long as people want to be here, I think we're going to continue to see our economy grow and maintain the strength that we've seen. It's interesting because you talk about the 2008 slump, and I feel like we were even a little bit insulated from a lot of other markets in that. Although it felt like an implosion around here. If you were to go down to Nevada or Arizona, some of those areas that got hit very hard, it would have looked pretty rosy around Bozeman. I think that we're going to continue to see that strength in the Bozeman market. I think that our biggest headwinds are some city regulation that we deal with. I think that's pretty restrictive on getting housing into Bozeman, the appropriate housing that we need. We need workers. We talk about it a lot in Bozeman. We need workers, and it's a tough community to afford. So it's become a very expensive community. But again, people want to be here. It's such an incredible place that people will sacrifice all kinds of stuff to get an opportunity to live in Bozeman, just so you can enjoy the mountains and the rivers and everything that we have to offer.
That's fantastic. It's just crazy, for people who haven't been in Bozeman in a while. Every time I come back to our office here, because I'm here a couple days a week, I'm just in shock. It seems like there's a new building going up somewhere every time. Right. And part of it in 2008 that made it feel so rough was the deep connection economically to Big Sky. Have you noticed that Bozeman's economy is not as directly tied to Big Sky as it had been?
Yeah, I think that Yellowstone, Big Sky will always be a component. It's what brings 2 million visitors through the area every year. But Bozeman's definitely become a self-sustaining community. We've got a lot of light manufacturing. We've got a lot of tech jobs. Having Oracle here. We've got the hospital, which is a great resource for the entire region. And of course the university, having Montana State here, all are components that make it its own self-sustaining economy. So I think that although it'll always be tied in some fashion to Big Sky, Yellowstone, and the recreational opportunities that all offers, I think that it definitely has its own legs at this point. So
fantastic. Well, let's kind of get towards the wrap up here, which is usually one of my last questions is, do you read? If you read, what kind of books do you like to read? What's some great books you've read, or podcasts you listen to, or TED Talks?
I do like to read. I don't get a chance to read enough. Most of my time I spend reading real estate related news articles and things like along those lines. Market periodicals. But when I read recreationally, I like to read a lot of biographies, mostly leadership type stuff. So finishing up one about James Madison right now, and got a couple of good books from my wife over Christmas. One about it's kind of the anti-leadership book, but it's about a Silicon Valley startup that just underwent some of the worst leadership that you could imagine. A startup in Silicon Valley that ended up by just being a big sham ultimately. So.
Okay, so then what are some of the key takeaways about bad leadership then that you've read so far in the book?
Yeah, that one's good. It was a very young leader who did not have any real leadership training, leadership background, and boy, she just ran that company like a dictatorship. It was her vision, her way. She was big on micromanaging, and she just did not instill any sort of confidence in her people. She was constantly just hiring and firing for all the wrong reasons, and it was just a very unstable work environment. It's incredible, all the little missteps, but ultimately she just didn't provide any stability for her staff, and I think that was a big part of the problem.
There's a great couple of TED Talks by Simon Sinek on how great leaders lead, and the stability is such a huge part of it. People will follow you if you make them feel safe, and that's just I'm excited to get this book.
Well, she definitely fostered an environment that was not safe.
Yeah. So. Well, I'm excited to get this book because that's going to really be an interesting read, because I never understood how a woman at her age could build something so great that collapses so quickly on itself. Yeah. And so I've never understood what happened. So I think that's going to be a great read.
You'll like it. You'll like it.
Well, any parting shots or thoughts for us?
No, I just appreciate what you're doing. I think that, again, Montana is incredible because it is one small community ultimately, and it's nice to have business leaders getting together and have you put together some material to help not only current business leaders but also some of our future leaders, because that's an important part of leadership, is bringing up the next round of leaders, and I think you're doing a great job in doing some of that, so we certainly appreciate it.
Andrew, thank you for joining us today. Yeah. This was fantastic. Again, everybody, this was Andrew Hurlburt from Bozeman Real Estate Group. I can't thank you enough for joining us today. This is the Montana Business Vlog. Everybody, thank you for coming along the ride with us. We'll have future vlog entries coming. So please like below at the bottom. Catch us on Silverman Law Office's website at mttaxlaw.com. You can catch us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Please, the material's free. I can't tell you enough how great it is to have people like Andrew and the others join us. Again, Joel Silverman from Silverman Law Office, just trying to connect Montana business people in the best way we know how, which is this. Yeah. Just sharing.
It's fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
I really
again,
do
Andrew.
appreciate it. Thank you.